Has Cousins' season been a failure?
Not at all. Not in my estimation. And I genuinely feel that way. Is he Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or somebody? No, he's not. Nobody's trying to claim that. But the reality of the situation is the earlier part of this season, the Minnesota Vikings defense was highly suspect. Dalvin Cook wasn't there. And ultimately, he came back. Even though Latavius Murray has been running the football effectively, you're looking at the Kirk Cousins right now. Very few people can go to Foxborough and then Seattle back-to-back and win those kind of games. You need a collective effort, and everybody's got to show up. I certainly don't believe that we've seen that over the last 2 weeks with the Minnesota Vikings. I look at Kirk Cousins right now, and I just say to myself, you know something? I'm looking at numbers, and he was completing about 70% of his passes. He had his share of touchdowns. His touchdown-interception ratio wasn't that bad. I look at the Minnesota Vikings as being somewhat of falling off, rather than not being there, but having fallen off a little bit. Last year, their defense was dominant. Dominant to the degree we looked at them until the last 6 quarters of the playoffs. Second half against the New Orleans Saints, and then obviously the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles, where they gave up 62 points. Up until that point, we were talking about the Minnesota Vikings defense similar to how we talk about Chicago's defense this year. Similar to how we talk about Chicago's defense. That's why you went out and got Kirk Cousins. And last thing I'll say is this. It's about purpose. And what I mean by that is this. Why were you brought here? You weren't brought here to be Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, or somebody else. What you were brought here to be was an upgrade from Case Keenum, and everything else around you was supposed to be the same. And that hasn't been the case for the Minnesota Vikings this year.
He was brought there to do one thing and one thing clearly, to win. I'm disappointed in you, Stephen A. I'm disappointed in your inconsistency.
Okay.
Stephen A., you are one to crucify mediocrity. You crucify it with Jason Garrett. You crucify it with Marvin Lewis. But you're inconsistent. Why would you not go after Kirk Cousins right here? It's plain as day, and I appreciate Kirk Cousins' self-awareness. He knows what's going on. He understands. This has been a pitiful performance. He's been an absolute failure with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I want to be clear. The final judge, the final grade doesn't come in until the end of the season because he was brought in to win 2 more games than the Vikings were capable of winning last year. We will see if he can win those 2 more games. But every piece of evidence suggests the answer is no. Whether or not it's the Patriots, the Bears, the Saints, the Rams, and now the Seahawks, every time he plays a big-time opponent in a big-time moment, not only does he fall short, by the way, those stats, 70% completion rate, who cares anymore? Everybody completes 70% of your passes. Last night, he completed one backwards. He did this. Latavius Murray was right there. The line of scrimmage is that way. He turned around and threw it to Murray that way. That's one of your 70%. It's backwards. He threw it backwards, Stephen A. This is a failure.
Well, here, it's a failure, and it's not Kirk Cousins' fault. Because I agree with you, Stephen A. When you look at the stats, he's the same guy he's always been.
Thank you.
He was the guy I knew that they were getting. But he's a failure because he was brought there because they felt like they were a quarterback away. They felt like when you go against the Los Angeles Rams, you couldn't beat Jared Goff with Case Keenum. They felt like when you went against the New Orleans Saints, you couldn't beat Drew Brees with Case Keenum. Well, guess what? Kirk Cousins hasn't either. Right? You go to Foxborough, and I know you bring up the team and these different things. You throw 2 interceptions on your last 2 drives. You have an opportunity to play against the Seattle Seahawks. You're playing an elite quarterback. And Russell Wilson did not play well last night.
No, he did not.
But what did he do? When it was time to make a winning play, he gives you the big scramble that puts the Seattle Seahawks in scoring position to put the game out of reach. I'm not blaming Kirk Cousins for his failure. I'm blaming the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings thought they were buying something different than they were when they gave up $84 million.
Right. Let me respond. Let me respond back to him for a quick second. Okay. First of all, be ashamed all you want. I could care less. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, this was the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL last year. They are number 11. Okay, that's a significant drop-off when you consider how bad they were at the beginning of the season. Third, why do I go back? I've never sat up there and raved about no Kirk Cousins. I'm not raving now. I know what he is. I completely 1,000% agree with you. But my point to you is that he was supposed to be an upgrade from Case Keenum. But it was considering everything being equal. Okay, our defense ain't going anywhere. Okay, our running game ain't gonna emerge to be the 30th ranked running game in the National Football League. We have all our pieces in place. All we need is for him not to be Case Keenum, be a little bit better.
Games come down to one possession.
Okay.
NFL games come down to making a play in situational football and crunch time.
But Kirk Cousins has never done that.
He makes that play. He makes that play for the other team. No, I'm not even joking.
But we're not disagreeing with that. That's all I'm saying.
But that's what makes it a failure, though. When you lose 31-38, obviously you're going to point to the Minnesota.
No, but we're not saying that. We're not saying it's a passing grade. What we're saying is it on Kirk Cousins? And you said you agree because you knew what you were getting in Kirk Cousins if you were the Minnesota Vikings. I'm saying the Minnesota Vikings is getting exactly what the Redskins had in Kirk Cousins. The difference is they ain't what they were last year.
Vikings aren't what we thought they were.
Yes.
And that's part of it.
But that's all I'm saying.
Look, maybe this is it, okay? And I know this is it. There's no maybe about it. He's not solely to blame with where they are today being a 6-6-1 team. It's not just, by the way, the defense. It's an offensive line. It's John DeFilippo, who hasn't organized a good offense this year. But the fact of the matter is, when he makes a play, I'm not joking. It is the other team. He has, as you heard, Antoinetta, 16 turnovers, many of which have led to points for the other team, like last night with Seattle. That right now, incomplete grade, but trending towards failure, absolute failure. Yeah.